Hey, welcome to Adventures in Relationship, a psychoeducational show about healthy relationships for adults with complex trauma. I'm Amy Gordon, an individual and couples psychotherapist working on unceded Tiwa land in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I also offer virtual therapy, so reach out if you'd like to work with me individually or as a couple. I'm going to get back on track soon, I promise, with talking about more relationship specific topics. But today I want to honor a collective need to talk about trauma in the context of current events, which really is relational, albeit at scale. What we're experiencing and witnessing is affecting us. We're all being negatively impacted. Even if you're not aware that you are, it is registering in your nervous system on some level. The violence being carried forward from the Epstein cover ups, the Trump administration, ICE, and further enactment and normalization of violence all around the world in Iran, Sudan, Congo, Ukraine, and many other countries is damaging your nervous system. I also want to be explicit about the violent atrocities being enacted against Palestinians. I haven't mentioned it in a while, but I am an anti Zionist Jew. Some conservative Jews are claiming that anti Zionism is anti Semitism. And I just want to clarify that it is not, and that message is so Darvo y. If you weren't aware, DARVO is an acronym for Defend, Attack, and Reverse Victim and Offender. It's a common psychological abuse mechanism and a strategic tool the current administration is adept at using to coercively manipulate the public. We're experiencing these events in real time in our bodies. It's not abstract, it lives in our nervous systems. From a neurobiological lens, our mental health structures and symptoms are shaped in relationship. They organize around proximity to interpersonal safety or danger, and whether protection is reliable, unreliable, or conditional. And these systems of abuse and exploitation, immigration law enforcement, and the military industrial complex are relational. They signal interpersonal safety or threat in this case. And we're experiencing a lot of signals of threat from the overculture. But our bodies register these experiences similarly to intergenerational trauma and dysfunctional parenting. So if you've experienced complex trauma around unpredictable or unsafe authority and enduring authoritarian force instead of care, you're being triggered right now. The nervous system interprets non consensual control, surveillance, powerlessness, punitive punishment, senseless violence, and separation from caregivers as danger, and rightfully so. There are a number of theories of power, but most, including Audre Lorde's and Angela Davis's, do a spot on job when it comes to explaining how power works is the ability to affect and impact others. Power is the ability to affect and impact others. Under Great White Father's patriarchy, power is extremely dangerous, and it's exercised through these sociopaths upon those of us whose pain is systemically dismissed, whose families are destroyed, and whose trauma is treated as acceptable collateral damage by those in power. From this lens, what we're seeing isn't a failure of messaging or misunderstanding. We're being dominated, and power without accountability always creates trauma. For people with complex trauma, this time in history is landing with a particular intensity because our nervous systems have lived inside similar dynamics before, surviving chronic threat, unpredictable authority figures, and highly conditional safety. This triggering is subtle and insidious. It might show up as tension or hypervigilance or exhaustion. We've got the urge to keep watching and keep engaging to the point of burnout and depletion, or the opposite, the urge to shut down and turn everything off. And these symptoms are patterned responses from a nervous system trying to keep us alive. This is where a lot of well-meaning therapists and kind of the mental health field in general misses the mark. A lot of therapists are pushing cognitive approaches or rushing us to regulate. But the nature of human neurobiology reminds us that regulation comes through safety and resonance first. This might look like being with safe and supportive others or an other, or even pets and nature. We need emotional resonance in connection, and we need validation for our emotional experiences. Without that resonance or attunement and validation, requests to stay grounded feel dismissive and they're abandoning. So, what helps isn't forcing yourself into composure, it's restoring small pockets of relational safety, choosing with care for yourself who you talk to, what you expose yourself to, and please engage to the best of your limited capacity and let your anger exist without immediately sanitizing it with toxic positivity. Allow the very real grief you're feeling to exist without spiritually bypassing it, because we need to grieve. And we need to grieve how familiar this feels in our body. We need to grieve all of the losses and harms we've experienced that are being reactivated by these current events. We need to grieve for our human family being harmed in real time. And you may need to grieve the fantasy that systems of power were designed to protect you. You don't need to be endlessly resilient, and you don't have to metabolize these events perfectly. And you don't need to stay functional at the expense of your humanity. Although I completely understand that functionality can be necessary for the survival of you and your family. That's real. But I want to emphasize the importance of connection right now to yourself, to safe others, and to your values that make compassion possible in the first place. So remember to go slowly, drink your water, orient your senses, remind yourself of where you're at, what you're experiencing. All five or more senses, pay attention to them, let them receive and provide you feedback. You can let your eyes land on something appealing or neutral and solid, and remind yourself that you're here, that you're not alone, and what's happening in your nervous system makes sense. That's all I have for today. I want to thank you for listening or watching. Please get professional help locally or online if you're struggling. I'm a therapist, but I'm not your therapist. And don't rely on podcasts or webcasts as your primary mental health support. Take good care of yourself, your friends, animals, community, and your partner if you're committed, because you don't have to abandon yourself to do so. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen or watch today. My mission is to help adults with complex trauma find emotional freedom and learn how to thrive in relationships. So if you can take a moment to follow, rate, review, or share this episode, it's immensely helpful. Thank you for watching or listening. Until next time.